adultos. Si va a ser presenciado por menores de edad, recomendamos su discusión con sus padres o representantes.
Music that penetrates the body.
That's why we release the kind of music we do. We hope we can take you to the next level.
Through really out of desperation, and that comes from not being able to express yourself in the ways you might like. Now in Chicago, house music came out of the gay community. In the mid-70s, late 70s, the early 80s was when the music really started being produced and being released from Chicago. It was at the tail end of the 70s and the early 80s. And in that time in America, the gay community wasn't accepted even nearly to the small level that it is today.
It was a big homosexual scene. It was a very big black gay scene when it first started. And Chicago, Chicago has different scenes, but it still unified the whole city because all of a sudden the whole city was dancing to this one kind of music. And that was the nice part about house music, is that it unified the city.
Well, originally it started with both. It started with straight and gay people. I mean, just the whole element of going to jack or dance in a house set. I mean, it was a mixed crowd, and it was like, y'all don't touch us, we don't touch y'all. So that's what it was about.
A new form of music being produced mostly by the gay black community in the nightclubs. It was strictly their thing at first. And the music was so undeniable that it had to be pressed and it had to be released because the force of it, just the pure love and spiritualness inside of it was just too strong to be denied.
The word house music comes from a club that Frankie Knuckles used to play in Chicago. It was called the Warehouse. And what people would do, they would shorten the name and say, we're going to listen to some house music, which was short for warehouse music. The elements behind house music is that you had a lot of young brothers and sisters in urban neighborhoods that actually worked in their bedrooms and made music off of 808s, 909s, 707s, etc. One keyboard, it was just original.
Producers didn't really have an outlet for their music, and so they started their own record labels. And this was born out of the nightclubs. These guys had cheap electronic equipment that they were making music with, and they were taking out to the nightclubs and playing on a nightly basis to this very core underground following, because this music also wasn't being played on the radio, it wasn't being released on any record labels. They still have to call it something to give it a definition, to give it that whole special feeling. And in Chicago, we called it house music. You know, there was a club called the Warehouse, and that's where it was born. And people said it came from people making music at house parties, or that these producers made their music in their house, and that's where that name came from. And since it was such an underground type of thing, everybody in that community said, yeah, house music, that's what we do, that's where we're from, and that's what we're into. And it stuck. And it became something that eventually the press picked up on, the media picks up on, radio picks up on, and here we are 15 years later, and house music is a definite, you know, it's a thing. When you say house music, people know what it is.
I think that, you know, some house music is like that. I mean, just, you know, if you can feel it, and you're feeling it in your heart, and just, you know, it's overcoming you, and you know you're dancing, and it's just, you know, it's more than, you know, just hearing a song on the radio or whatever. But experiencing it, it's like being in the club, in the sweaty club, the sound system, the dark light, the strobe flashing, you know, all the stuff that house music and house parties, you know, stem from.
Because it's music, I mean, it's music with energy, music to dance to and stuff. Different styles of house music and different things are may become a little bit more popular worldwide, but there'll still always be that underlying, you know, what I feel like underground house music, and it like it rises, it's very, you know, popular, and it sets off, and something else kind of becomes popular, and it keeps on rising. But that underground house music is always still there, that Chicago house music.
It has and it hasn't. It's kind of like the same with drum and bass in a sense where it was top 40, but it was underground. Same thing with house music. It's like, it's just, this is the biggest part of dance music, but there's still underground elements to it.
I wouldn't want it to see just to be very exclusive and every, you know, something that I want to see the whole world into house music.
As long as we stay strong, it's going to stay underground. I mean, the underground part of it is not that it's like illegal like beer in the 20s, but it's the whole sound of it. Yeah, it's going to maintain the sound.
It's much more commercial when it first started. You know, right now we're replaying the same thing. You know, there's some radio stations that play it, but they don't, except for one song or two songs, they don't play it in regular rotation. So it's not a cultural phenomenon. I mean, it's not. There are very limited groups that listen to house music or dance music. You know, I mean, we're lucky with things such as Prodigy or what's his name, Fatboy Slim, something like that. You know, and they break, or Chemical Brothers, they break through the underground.
But from what I see, there's the popular top 40 house club that's kind of cheesy, where everybody knows the words and they play it on the radio. And then there's the underground, you know. Well, yeah, there is drugs, there's a good time, you know, in general. I don't use drugs, but it's like, you know, it goes on, and it's like, you know, maybe that's a part of, I guess, feeling the music. I think if you have to listen to, if you have to take anything to improve the music, then it's kind of weird.
As far as the drugs, that's what's messing the house game up. I mean, when I say drugs, I mean, you got kids that take acid, ecstasy, sniff markers. I mean, that's not a part of the house history. And that's bad, that's like bad taboo to me. Drugs mixed with house music, because when I partied back in the days, in the early mid-'80s, when I partied, the music made me high.
Well, drugs played a part in how this music was made. You know, I can't deny that there are a lot of people in the nightclubs then and now that do drugs that inspire a lot of this stuff or get inspired by it. I mean, I would hope that that's not why they're there. You know, that they maybe, if somebody's using drugs, that they're using it to enhance whatever they're getting. Unfortunately, in the rave scene, you see a little bit too much of people going to a rave just to do drugs. But it seems that in the house community that it's always been about the music making people high, you know, not the other way around.
You go back to Studio 54, which is a popular thing. Drugs were a big part of that. And that's what made disco popular, is Studio 54. You go on down the line, and we had loft parties. A lot of people were smoking weed, doing, you know, this kind of drug, that kind of drug. But the drugs changed, but hopefully people will actually go there for the music. And the drugs help bring the music out, help people feel the music more. And I think that's why people do drugs a lot, like ecstasy. There's a huge craze in the rave scene in England and everything. But I think it's because you get different vibrations from the music.
Yeah, the drugs is messing up the music thing because you don't need it. And I want to say, marijuana is not a drug. We're talking about cocaine, heroin, acid, ecstasy. Yeah.
Is a form of music made by DJs, and it's made for DJs, and it's promoted by DJs, played on the radio. It all happens from the DJ. So the DJ in America needed to become more recognizable. And the way that they went about doing that was promoting themselves sometimes before the music that they were playing. Like you might listen to a radio station and hear a DJ doing a mix, and you'll hear that DJ's name every 30 seconds, and you won't hear that many songs that are actually being played.
I'm at a point now where I can make decent money, but a lot of times, you know, over the years, people, they always want the hookup, they want the favors, they don't realize how much import records cost them and how, you know, the time and effort of going into this. A lot of times they want to just tell you, they want to give you the attitude like, we're doing you a favor.
It's an obsession. It's almost like an addiction in a lot of ways. You just have to keep finding those great records, whether you have to go get on your knees and flip through the old soul records at a record store to find something that's all dusty and scratched up for 50 cents, or you have to, you know, get them straight from the record labels or mail to London or Canada or wherever. You hear a sound and you have to find it, and you do whatever you have to do to get it.
Maybe some hip-hop, some R&B, jazz music. I must say, and it does influence what I do.
I listen to everything. I mean, a lot of reggae, a lot of old jazz and soul, some Latin music, a lot of hip-hop, you know, underground hip-hop. But for the most part, I don't have one. Classic rock, I mean, so many. I get bored. I don't really listen to what I play.
Oh, I can be influenced by being in a nightclub. I can be influenced by walking down the street, by playing guitar, by listening to the radio, by eating dinner, by sleeping, and I can get influence from anything.
My uncle was a big-time DJ in the 70s, and he would give me all his records, and that's what influenced me, all the disco records and all, you know, just steppers, dusties, all built into one. They lack emotional content when it comes to music. I mean, everything the DJs out here in Chicago is to put on a show. But me, I'm a crowd pleaser. I like to please the crowd. It's about making the people on the dance floor happy and not yourself. You know, it's about you taking other people's emotions and making them good. So.
The DJ in America is one of the last and one of the most important people as far as exposing music. And on a smaller level, the DJ is a person who loves music so much that he or she has to do whatever they have to do to play great music in front of a crowd that wants to have a good time. And you don't see people who have that love of music to that level of dedication in almost any other kind of music out there. When you're spinning, it's almost like you're outside your body. There's an energy level that passes through everybody in the club. When you're having a great night, of course, you know, when you're off, people let you know you're not having a good night. But when it's on and the crowd's really reacting to what you're doing, you're not even thinking. You're just playing, and the people are just reacting, and there's this energy transfer back and forth. And it's a feeling that's almost indescribable, but that's what drives the DJ, and that's what keeps the DJ going back there, going back to the club that you're not getting home until 6 in the morning from, and you're drunk and you're not making enough money, and people are hassling you for not playing this record or playing that record, and all the other things that go with it. But that that reaction between the crowd and the DJ is it's almost religious. I don't think there's anything really that difficult about it. I mean, I love every single part of it. I think the hardest thing is like just probably taking your records up the stairs at 5:30 in the morning after you're done. You're always the last one out.
The most difficult part about being a house artist is some people married and they women don't believe that they doing music. Okay, I'm just tripping. Secondly, what's hard about house music is getting paid. That's hard.
Progressive house. A little bit like techno. Harder beats, you know what I mean? A lot of energy, you know, tend to have a little bit more vocals, I believe.
Progressive house, almost techno, but not.
Drum and bass, something like that. Drum and bass are a faster form of hip-hop or reggae.
It's definitely a part of hip-hop because a lot of the breaks and stuff are hip-hop breaks, and the vocalist a lot of times is an MC or a reggae vocalist, but there's so many different things that drum and bass now, it seems.
Drum and bass, the more mature form of what was originally called jungle and now encompasses a lot of different styles all in its own.
A fast form of hip-hop. Speed hip-hop is drum and bass to me.
Sort of abstract, sort of, you know, deep chords and strings but nice rhythm, you know.
Ambient, me.
Ambient should mean beatless, you know, very atmospheric, wash your brain with sounds, that kind of thing. But it takes on a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people.
That church, that church singing, that loud, that singer who brings the house down and just gives you chill bumps, you know what I mean? You know, singing that vocal song in the club and everybody's with their hands up and sing along. Okay. That's what I think is soulful.
A good definition of soulful. Music that penetrates the body. That's soulful music.
Techno is a very broad term. Originally, you know, techno would be referred to as the sound that was inspired by Chicago house that some guys in Detroit, like Derek May and Juan Atkins and Kevin Saunderson.
Techno is a version, I think, of harder house. You know, a little more electronic, a little more, not as soulful, a little more mechanical.
It's the most natural and the most real instrument. So that's like a gift from God to have good vocals.
Vocal house is the way that house can really succeed and continue to succeed because you have to have, in America, it seems you have to have vocals and songs and singers to base an image around to have a so-called star, to have the success. Garage basically has been, I would define it as the house sound that has come from the East Coast through New York and later New Jersey. And it's a very keyboard-oriented, very spiritual, gospel-influenced form of house music.
The garage is where my stepfather keeps his car.
Kind of minimal, you know, stemming from the disco deep house into where house was kind of transcending.
A good definition of garage, classic Chicago house. That's what garage is. Only garage I knew is in my backyard.
Tribal's just how it sounds, very beat, percussion heavy, makes you want to get up and move.
Tribal is a little more techno-y, more percussion. You know, it's definitely got the percussion. The percussion separates it and makes it tribal.
Tribal is the problems in Yugoslavia between Serbs and Albanians.
Deep house is the classic stuff that comes from Chicago, where we're at right now. It's that soulful, funky bass line and just that spiritual feeling. And it can't be defined in a word or two, but it's a feeling that you know when you're listening to true deep house.
goal for music is to just keep doing good music and keep giving the people what they want. Keeping yourself happy too while you're doing it, because it's not easy putting out hits. I mean, it's hard. It ain't like it's competition, but when you put your stuff out there, you putting your life on the line, like your neck. So your stuff gotta be good. Everybody like to dance. And I mean, certain music you just can't dance to. House music is the music of the future. It was the music of the past, dating back to disco and jazz, you know, sitting in a juke joint in a bar. I mean, house music gonna be here forever.
I mean, I think if house music can influence any other kind of music anywhere, then it's a wonderful thing. I mean, there are great talented people here in Chicago that have influenced music on a global level from the first days of house through right now and through 10 years from now.
Chicago is the birthplace of house music. But house music came from disco and funk and soul. So once again, it's an evolution of sounds.
I love it. It's worldwide. I look at house music as like Chicago as being a father and New York and Europe being the grandchildren. And then they had their own spawns into jungle, into drum and bass. I mean, I like it. I mean, I like the toll that house music takes.
I think people just started experimenting more with it, you know, and I mean, the structure is there, but it became more mechanical. You know, I think the disco era was more, you know, live instrumentation and bands and stuff, and house music became more of a drum machine, you know, sometimes incorporating more live elements, but mainly, you know, DJs and people who weren't even producers were doing house music.
Music is just being in another dimension. Your mind just somewhere else. Hey, just somewhere else besides what you're doing, because then you feel more comfortable. And when you're in another world, you tend to perform better. So, hey, that's me.
People need a way to express themselves and get things out of their system. And I think that dancing is when you hear the music, that's what you do, is you dance. And you rid yourself, you know, it's like boxing or something like that, or screaming, or, you know, it becomes very primal. And you get to release a lot of energy, you know, whatever happened to you that day, you get to let it out.
Right through me. The baby's crying, and I can't sleep.
If you can feel the music and you shut everything else out, that music will help you just find your own path and guide, make certain decisions as opposed to other decisions. And we hope that, you know, you make the right decisions, but it brings certain elements out of you, you know. And so that's really what it is, you know. And that's why we release the kind of music we do. We hope we can take you to the next level.